Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag College Show, Week 7. I am your host, Andrew, and I'm joined, as always, by Alex. Alex, before we get into the college football, you had some really good news about one of your articles that's been published. Would you like to tell the guys where they can find it, where they can read it?
Yeah, thanks. I'm pretty pleased with myself with this. Yeah, so the latest edition of Gridiron magazine, they've released a digital issue this past week to coincide with the London Games, but it's got my article about the breakup of the Pac-12 as a feature in that, so that's published in that issue. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I've got my name in print in that magazine.
Yes, brilliant
Please buy it online now. Thanks.
Hopefully we're sending some more people your way so you can get some more stuff published. You're doing some fantastic work in your articles. You've written stuff for loads of stuff for us in the past, so it's all superb work. So go and check it out. Go and read it if you haven't already. But we're here to talk about Upset Saturday to start off with. You know, college football has gone absolutely mental. I stayed up for the Georgia game, went to bed after the Georgia game because of our time difference, woke up and then checked all the scores and was like, whoa, what happened? How did you feel about the whole weekend at all before we go into the games?
Yeah, it's one of those weekends that you sort of sometimes you don't expect, but with college football, these sort of massive swings are quite possible all the time. But no, the amount of upsets of unranked teams knocking off ranked teams was just like, I mean, it's 4 or 5. There's some
5 of the top 11 ranked lost. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it almost like begs the question: oh, why were these teams ranked? Well, we know why some of them are ranked, because they should be really good. But yeah, some of them I really didn't expect. I know a couple of games we'll touch on were quite shocking upsets. Some maybe slightly more expected. I think, unfortunately, the one that probably was most likely was USC in Minnesota. But we'll get onto that in a minute. But yeah, and there were some good close games as well. Whilst there wasn't quite an upset with the Miami Cal game.
Really exciting game.
Yeah, it had a slightly controversial ending.
That's Cam Ward's second time he's had to pull that team from a loss to a victory in the dying seconds. So you know, they're games they should be winning comfortably as well. So, you know, there's some question marks to be had with Miami, despite the fact Cam Ward's saving them.
Yeah, but again, actually, just strengthening his Heisman case, and keeping the Canes undefeated.
He's dropped to second favourite now. Ashton Gentry's now the favourite. So
yeah, I can. But the numbers he's putting up is just ridiculous, isn't it?
I did see somewhere that whoever the last might have been 10 years, might have been longer, whoever's been leading the polls for Heisman Trophy after week 7 has the only person who's won it is Lamar Jackson. Everyone else has not won it. So not looking good for Ashton Genty if that's the case. Well, we'll dive right in and we'll go for the biggest upset of all, the number 1 seed Alabama losing to Vanderbilt 35-40. They were never really in it. It isn't one of those games where they were well in the lead and Vandy came back and beat them. You know, it's kind of Vandy's game all the way through. What's your thoughts on this game, Alex?
Yeah, a bit of a shocker. I think this is the first time that Vanderbilt have beaten Alabama in like 40 years or something ridiculous like that. And the first time they beat a top 5 ranked team ever, I think it was. Yeah, so it's an absolute shocker. But Alabama just seemed a bit out of sorts to start with. Vanderbilt capitalised on that. Pavia, their quarterback, had an excellent game. He was getting through the air with his legs as well, and they didn't. Well, they almost had answers for it, but not quite. And they Vanderbilt led the whole game, didn't they? They were never behind for the whole game and managed just to keep adding points, keep that one little step ahead of Alabama, who just couldn't quite catch up. Yeah, I think early mistakes from Jalen Milroe, because he threw, was it on his first or second pass of the game, he threw the pick 6. Didn't need to put him on the back foot, and then just had them chasing for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I said I think it was week 2, just before the Wisconsin game, I said I was unsure of Bama's secondary. I said they've got a load of youngsters in there. They're all in their first year, and I really thought, for me, it was Alabama's defense that let them down against Vandy. You said Milroe made some mistakes and they're never really in it, but that defense it struggled in the secondary. It struggled to on the D line. It struggled to stop the run at times. They struggled to get off the field, and I'm finding that quite concerning. You know, when you take a look at what the last 6 quarters of football that Alabama have played now, you'd start to think maybe the youngsters should be getting better as the season goes on. But the last 6 quarters, they've been outplayed massively. Obviously, they got in that shootout with Georgia that should never have been in, and then losing this game and conceding 40 against Vandy as well. Is this a big concerning area going forward that Alabama are going to be putting some more shootouts? We've got some big games coming up. Are you worried about them after seeing what's happened over the back end of the Georgia game and this Vandy game?
Yeah, I think you've got to be a little bit worried because, they almost threw the Georgia game away by letting them come back into it. And, and to concede 40 to Vanderbilt is a bit of a shocker. What they've struggled with a bit is I think on 3rd and 4th downs, like we saw with the Georgia game, Carson Beck obviously didn't have a brilliant game. He was continually managing to convert those 3rds and 4ths and keep Georgia in it right up until the end. They should have been stopping Vanderbilt a bit more easily than they should have than they did do. So yeah, I think they've got a bit of work to do in locking down teams that they should comfortably steamroll over, like a Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I think my big concern I've got with them now is they're going to be going away to Tennessee in a couple of weeks, and then they're away again at LSU. Now, I know LSU's got its problems on defense, but offensively, Tennessee maybe not so much of the last couple of weeks, but definitely at the start of the year, and LSU, very, very good offensive teams, a lot better on offense than Vanderbilt. This worries me quite a bit for them. Could we see what was the number 1 seed? Everyone's saying, they've knocked off Georgia, they could go all the way. Is there any possibility we could see Bama dropping another 1, maybe 2 losses here and maybe falling out of the realm of qualifying for the playoffs?
Well, yeah, I don't know. My sort of instinct is sort of telling me this is hopefully sort of like an anomaly game. This is a bit of a blip, one of those ones that just gets away from you, and then they'll be back again next week. Who have they got next week? I can't remember.
They got
South Carolina, aren't they?
South Carolina, yeah.
Yeah,
that'd be a good test.
They're a feisty team, and they can. Not the easiest to come back against, but I think they'll get back on track.
I think the thing I've got with this, with it being a loss to Vanderbilt as well, obviously it's another SEC team. They obviously got to play, like I said, Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, all SEC teams as well. Having the 2 losses in your conference really hinders you quite a bit. So, yeah, I think it might be a blip, but I think they've got to win out now to definitely secure it, as they've got a loss in the conference.
Yeah, but I think they are capable of winning out. I think.
Yeah, well, I think so. Jalen Milroe is playing excellent football. He's the reason that team's winning games like they are. The way he's playing and showcasing himself. Lots of talk now about him being a first-round pick in next year's draft. He's playing that well. He's got his name into that conversation. So. Yeah, he's going to be in a lot of shootouts, and it's going to be down to him. I think I've got lots of question marks about that defense, but yeah, it's going to be interesting for them.
Yeah, certainly will be. But I think we'll see how they respond. Are they at home next week?
At home against South Carolina, then away at Tennessee, home against Missouri, away at LSU is their next 4 games. And then they've got Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn, which I think they'll take care of all of them quite comfortably.
So the Vanderbilt game is pretty much a home game for them, because I think it's 80% of the fans in there were, well, Alabama fans, because Vanderbilt don't normally have much home support. But yeah, I think if they're back at home, South Carolina, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, it'll be a good test. As long as if the defense looks better, I'll be a lot more comfortable in putting some more chips on Bama to go a lot further than expected. So that it's a good test, and Tennessee have wobbled a little bit, which we'll talk about in a second. But we'll move on to our next game. It was Missouri versus Texas A&M. This wasn't a close game at all. Texas A&M absolutely blew them out, 41-10. Missouri really, it's a team that I was saying, they finished really strong last year. They've gone fairly silent assassins this year, just going about their business and winning games. But they've come up against a big team here, a team that obviously started off quite slow in the first week of the season, but I've got better and better as the Wigman's definitely improved massively for them, and just shown that, we shouldn't have got on the Missouri hype train, and they're not actually that good. Outside of Luther Burden, there's not really anything to this Missouri team to get on board with after that performance.
No, it wasn't great offensively, was it? I think Brady Cook had a bit of an underwhelming game, and then they couldn't get anything going. Because I think A&M Missouri didn't score a point in the first half, did they? So they were down 24 at a half, and that was it then, really, wasn't it? Wegman was looking better. Surprisingly good against Missouri's defense, which we've noted has been quite a strength of the team for this season. But maybe this is one of those sort of games where doubters have said, this is one that shines a spotlight on them as frauds. It's not quite the team that everyone or some people were saying that they could or should be. But I don't know. Maybe it's coming up against I would say a high-powered offense, because Texas A&M hasn't been that amazing offensively, but a decent offense, and they just couldn't keep up in this matchup.
I think it's a case of, like I said, the back end of last year they finished strong. Then the schedules come out, and you realize who Missouri have got, and you kind of go in, that's a fairly weak schedule. Outside of Bama, and I wouldn't even say Oklahoma's difficult. Outside of Bama, they had a fairly comfortable schedule to go all the way and maybe only lose one game to Alabama and be in the conversation there. But the team's just not got a plethora of superstars like some of those other SEC teams. So I think they're going to struggle, and I think I can comfortably write them off as being contenders after that performance.
Probably, yeah. I think so, yeah. Because Texas A&M aren't really in the top half of the SEC at the moment either. So
I'm sorry, what?
Sorry?
You don't think they're in the top half?
No, I think they're still behind. Well, hang on.
I think they're top.
They're right up there? I suppose they're 5-1 now. Do you know?
5-1 and 4. I'm guessing they're 4-0 in conference. Let me just get this.
3-0 in the conference. Yeah, I'm just looking at. So they're in quite a strong position. I'm still judging it off that. I haven't really watched Texas
off that first game.
Since the Notre Dame game. They've sort of not really been on my radar, but obviously I've not been paying close enough attention, because actually they probably have got themselves in quite a strong position, especially if Alabama are slipping up. But yeah, they could be up there if they're finding themselves now, because they weren't great to start with in the first couple of games. But yeah.
I've looked at their schedule because I've looked at all this. I thought, Texas A&M seem to be rolling now. They seem to be doing quite well. And then I'm looking at it going, they've got LSU to play in a couple of weeks, which are beatable. No one expected LSU to be incredible. I think they've overachieved a little bit in where they're at the moment. And then other than Texas, which is their last game, that could be their only other loss and their only loss in the SEC. So they're going to be a 2-loss team, 1-loss SEC conference game. So they could be in the conversation by the end of the year of being in the championship game. It's shocking to say that after their loss at the start of the season, how poor they looked.
But do you think that they'd be in the championship game above Georgia and Texas?
Well, Georgia have lost one SEC.
I know they've lost one.
They'd all have to lose another game, wouldn't they? They'd all have to beat themselves up. They've all got to play some strong games. So I think Bama have got to lose another one. I think Georgia have got to lose another one, and then it'll get interesting because they'll only have that loss to Texas. So that's the key. The one loss in the conference is the key, isn't it?
Yeah. So if they can keep clean up until then they might have a shout.
Now, our next game I wanted to talk about was at the time the 4th seed Tennessee, someone I was quite hot on, have enjoyed watching so far, going up against Arkansas. They lost 14-19. They were 14-10 up going into the 4th. They were as far ahead as 14-3 up. But yet again, we saw Nico struggle for a second week running on the road. Bit of lack of experience in the 4th quarter with some of his decision making. What's your thoughts on this Tennessee team after this loss?
I don't know. They should have closed this game out, and they didn't. They let Arkansas back in. They were hitting them quite hard on the ground, weren't they? Actually, this is relatively it was definitely an underwhelming performance from Nico. I mean, he only had 158 yards total. They were leaning a lot on Dylan Sampson, weren't they, to get in places and get points on the board, because I think both touchdowns came from scores from him. He just seemed a bit overwhelmed in the occasion. Then when it got down to crunch time and Arkansas were pushing back in and managed to take the lead, they couldn't get that drive, which they should have been able to do from the previous games, from what we've seen of them early in the season. The points they were putting up on people, the ease with which they were going down the field on other teams. But Arkansas seemed to figure them out, and then time ran out, and then we saw Nico end up running out of bounds, trying to just being chased by defenders, and that was it. That was basically the story of the game, wasn't it? That he was chased and hounded out of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I said prior to the game last week against Oklahoma that this was his first, or Oklahoma was his first proper road game. It's the first time he'd be in an environment that wasn't his own, quite noisy. And we saw him struggle slightly last week against them, and then we've seen him struggle again. I think the team's really, really good. I think, the defense is excellent. They've got a really, really good run game. Maybe they did shy away from him a little bit in the 4th quarter, thinking we don't want him to make any more mistakes. He's not producing. Let's lean on the run game, like you said. And I think, he's now got a stretch of home games coming up. So I think maybe he might get his confidence back a little bit. They've got a tough game against Florida this week. I think this is where it stems. He's got to play well because they haven't got a good history against the Gators so that's going to be really, really interesting. Hopefully he can get back to where he was at the start of the year and looking really sharp and really good, because I have still got faith in this Vols team, unlike I did in Missouri. So I think, once he's back at home and comfortable and in his environment, if he can get it rolling against the Gators, do you think they've got a shot against Alabama? We've spoke about it when we just spoke about Alabama. Do you think they could get into a bit of a shootout with them?
Possibly. Again, I think it's going to come down to the defenses. If Alabama do manage to sort out what's going on with their defense and their secondary, and then I think Alabama are stronger overall offensively, and could if they manage to to put the same sort of pressure on Nico that he was facing against Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas have been pretty decent side this season, but
they're never easy to play. I don't think any year. They've always got some talent on the roster. There's always some 5-star recruits about on there, so they're never easy to play Arkansas. So
no, and but neither are Alabama. Tennessee playing in Alabama or at home?
No, it's in Tennessee. So
is it? Okay, that could be quite an interesting matchup. I think that would definitely be that would be a close one. Again, I'd still lean more towards Alabama. I think in that one. I know you might. I don't know. You might go the other way with Tennessee. I think.
I don't know. I'm going to take what I see from this week. Like I said, I need to see more from Nico now. Like I said, he took care of those smaller schools in Chattanooga and Kent State very well, and he did have that win against NC State, who were ranked. I think they're back ranked again, but it's the performance was underwhelming against Oklahoma as well. So as long as he plays well against Florida, we'll see where we're at when I come to review the Bama game. Now the next game, it's in Upset Saturday. It's classed as an upset. It was the Michigan versus Washington, which was last year's championship game. Washington were actually favourites to win this game prior to kickoff. So we're saying it's an upset. Yeah, we're saying it's an upset, but they were the favourites. And Washington is always a tough place to go and play. They haven't been beat at home since 2021. So, that's a long stretch of home games to be winning. Equally, Michigan haven't lost the Big Ten game since 2021 either. So, the game finally finished 27-17. I've got a few notes to talk about this, but fire away with it first. What's your thoughts on this game and now Michigan going forward?
Well, I thought there was a big difference in quarterbacks. Alex Talk didn't have a great game, did he? And found himself benched at halftime after completing 3 passes in the first half. And then I think they brought in Jack Tuttle, didn't they?
Yep.
He's like a 6th or 7th year in college or something ridiculous like that. Who seemed right at first, but then gave away some key turnovers towards the end of the game. Whereas on the other side, we had Will Rogers, who looked very comfortable in this game, and just watching that offense was a bit more reminiscent of what we were seeing from Washington last year under Kalen DeBoer. I think they're starting to figure things out, and they've come up with a very decent receiver. Denzel Boston is having a bit of a corker, isn't he? I think he's got 8 touchdowns on the season now, and he had a couple. Did he have one? They had one in this game, but he looked good. But I just thought Rogers looked excellent in this game, especially early on. There's some big throws, some really good passes that were just cutting through the Michigan secondary. But again, that outside of the run game, Michigan couldn't really get much going offensively. Well, I said defense is very good. Washington were just too decisive in this game, I think, for them. And they had opportunities to get back into it because Washington had a couple missed field goals and things like that. So they had a chance to pull themselves back in, but couldn't quite do it.
I know both of these teams lost lots of people to the virtually the whole teams to the draft last year. So, it's going to be tough for Washington. I think they play well. They're a good team. They're always in games. They're great every single year. Don't think they're going to really challenge in the Big Ten. Michigan, for me, is more of a bigger talking point. Obviously, still ranked. Washington got the same record as them, I think. So it's very odd that you can beat someone and then be higher than them in the Big Ten conference that you're in, and then be ranked and you not be. It's where it all starts turning a bit bizarre. But Michigan, let's talk about this because offensively they've looked really bad all year. The only game they really got it going properly was against USC, which they started leaning back into that run game. But they brought Jack Tuttle in, as you said, and he had a phenomenal third quarter. He came out and looked absolutely brilliant, and then it all seemed to fall apart in the fourth quarter. I don't know whether that's to do with play calling or whether it was all Tuttle's fault or whatever, but Do you think that Tuttle was the plan all along, and they were hoping that he'd be ready for the start of the year? Because the way they came out at the start of the year and the game plan and with Warren makes sense now that they didn't go with Orji. They're now on their third quarterback. Do you think this was the plan for Tuttle to be the starter from week one and he just wasn't ready, or do you think they're just a mess at the moment and they don't know what to do?
No, I hadn't considered that because I just thought from the discussions like pre-season they were looking towards Orji, but he wasn't ready, and Warren got the nod. I thought they were trying to build that sort of ground game rushing identity around Orji, a strong runner as a quarterback. But yeah, that hasn't worked out either. I hadn't even thought about Tuttle, to be honest, until I watched this game. Oh, right, there he is. Yeah, I don't know if that was the plan or not. Do you think that? Yeah, so maybe.
Yeah, I'm starting to think maybe the way it was set up and they chose Warren because Warren played a similar game plan to Tuttle that might fill in. So I'm starting to think maybe that was the plan from the start. But also with Michigan, away from that, we knew they were going to struggle on offense. They lost a lot of key players. The defense, they've still got 3 first-round talent, like top half first-round talent players that are going to be in the draft next year. But the defense seems to be struggling in fourth quarters. Now, I can't believe that you can tell me, oh, yeah, it's the fourth quarter, they're tired, your superstars are coming off and they haven't got the depth to bring people in. I'm starting to believe that Wink Martindale, which I've already said on here, is getting the blitzes wrong, and he is not playing the Harbaugh Michigan way that they had it going. And I think there's areas to be concerned about that defense, which has got superstars on it.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. Just watching the way they got cut open by Washington this game, they can't. If they're going to blitz like that, then they need to. It needs to be effective. They need to get to the quarterback much more often than they have been doing. How many sacks did they have in that game? Not enough, probably. So they have sacks. Only 1, 2. No, actually, they had 4 in the game. So like, we're getting some.
It's the fourth quarter for me. I don't know whether you can call that. They're getting it wrong. The game plan's wrong. I don't know whether he's thinking, I'll blitz and shut them down and get them 3 and out, but he's giving up too much room for that secondary to cover because he's like rushing 6, and I'm like, just play out the game, play hard football.
They did the same against USC, didn't they? As well, they were constantly.
They blitzed less against you.
It seemed like a lot when I was watching it.
I think they were down to 30-odd% against USC, and I was like, oh, actually, maybe they've listened to us. Maybe they're tuning into the show, but he's gone back to it. So
okay, it felt like a lot when I was watching it because Miller Moss was on the backside a lot. But yeah, they need to sort that out because they can't. They're going to lose more games because if they're going to give up the big plays of the yards and the points in the fourth quarter, because and especially if they're playing from behind, which they have been, they can't chase games with the offense the way it is at the moment. So they need to lean on the defense to keep them in it.
No, I think the way that Ohio, Oregon, and Penn State are all playing at the moment. I mean, even Indiana are playing well at the moment. I can't see that Michigan have got a chance now in the Big Ten this season. So I'm kind of writing them off as well. The last one, the other upset, I'm sorry to bring it up. It seems like we talk about USC quite a lot. They're in and out of the media and what's going on. USC versus Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, we can probably stop talking about them after this because I think they're done. I think that was a winnable game. A very winnable game for USC, and they should have won it. Again, it was a very underwhelming passing game. Both running backs on each side had very, very good games. Woody Marks looked very good for USC. Had some big runs. Finished with 134, and then Darius Taylor for Minnesota had an excellent game. and then it just came down to that touchdown, not touchdown at the end on the fourth, when Minnesota went for it on fourth down. It was ruled not a touchdown. I think it was a touchdown, but it was then overturned by the refs, even though they shouldn't have been able to do that. Anyway, I shouldn't be better, because then USC, they should have been able to level it up after that, but they didn't get going. Minimos didn't look brilliant. He chucked 2 interceptions in that game, which did him in. Then I think that could be the USC season done.
Yeah, I mean, if it could be, and it might be, and the way it's looking, the way they looked. Do you think this is a big learning curve now for Lincoln Riley, that, this is the second time already that when he's coming up and playing against these Big Ten teams, he's still playing Pac-12 football? He's got to remember they're very, very different styles of football. Any time he gets into a scrappy, tough, gritty sort of, the other teams like Minnesota, they were really up for a fight, and they were really, really dug in and scrapped all the way through. I find when he gets into those games, it falls apart a little bit for USC, and the defense kind of reverted back to missing tackles and things, and you're getting turnovers, and your O-line didn't look as good. Do you think this is a wake-up call that maybe he needs to look at the transfer portal a bit more and bring in more bigger stars on O-line and D-line a bit more, and focus on that heavily, as opposed to what he's been doing and trying to play Pac-12 football in the Big Ten?
Maybe on the offensive line. I mean, the USC's defensive line has been quite good. Like the past few games, like they found themselves behind in the first half. Danton Lynn's made some very good adjustments at halftime, and then got after the other team on defense, and the offense has lit them up. We saw that against Wisconsin, when they were trailing at the half, and they made those adjustments. But then you can't rely on that, because obviously this game, whatever adjustments they tried to make at halftime didn't quite work, and this was more of a gritty sort of Big Ten Midwest style football sort of game, when it was all done on the ground and in the trenches. And obviously USC come unstuck with that. So I think the offensive line needs.
The offensive line, it hasn't got any superstars on it, has it? It hasn't got anybody that I'm not looking at. And in previous years, you've had players that have gone, I wouldn't mind drafting them. But this year I'm looking at the O-line going, I probably wouldn't draft any of them into the NFL. And that's such a shame, because you need to get to challenge and be there. You need stars, and you've got nothing ready to come on either in the wings.
No. So that is definitely an area of need going forward. And again, it's going to be a similar sort of game next week with Penn State.
You've got a tough game next week. After Carter flying at you, I think that's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, so that could be the nail in the coffin, I think, on USC season next week. At least it's at the Coliseum. So and it's like the furthest west that Penn State have travelled in a long time. So hopefully can't bank on travelling a couple of time zones isn't going to have that much of an effect on them, but you never know. Crazy things have happened.
Yeah, well, like I said, I've said it before, they're all young kids. They're not. Yeah. Some of them might not have been any further than their own region. So traveling, I think traveling does make a difference. I think we've seen that quite a bit this year since the realignment of some of them, that the traveling and the time they take to get back and doing their schoolwork and stuff like that. I think it does play a bit on them. So I think there is an element of that this year.
Yeah, I think because I think Lincoln Riley commented on in the start before the season that he felt that being a West Coast team, they had an advantage, because when they were traveling, they were coming back and gaining time back, whereas it's the opposite for teams going from the east side of the country. So it's a bit harder for them to travel that way at long distances. We'll see. We'll see the effect it has. But yeah, I don't know if I'm looking forward to that game or not.
we'll move on to this week's fixtures. There is some massive games on this week. Some really interesting ones. I was hoping this first one we're going to talk about, when the schedule comes out, this is one people will probably pencil and be like, yes, the Red River shootout. And I'm like, I can't call it that anymore, can I? The Red River rivalry.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to call it shootout anymore. It's been renamed, hasn't it? This should have been a really good game. It should have been interesting, but Texas are now 14.5-point favorites. Oklahoma's offense has looked very poor. Their defense, on the other hand, has looked fantastic. I think they're the 4th-ranked defense in the country. Quinn Ewers could be back and supposed to be back. He's practiced all week. Could be back for this game as well. What's your thoughts on this game?
Whoever's starting at quarterback for Texas, I think Oklahoma are going to be in for a rough ride. But this is the sort of game where teams might step up for, like a team like Oklahoma. They've been struggling, but this is their big game of the season. This is the college rivalry game where they're going to lay it all out on the line, whether that works or not. Because Jackson Arnold's not been brilliant this season, but I think they're going to give as good as they can. But I think Texas are Texas this year, and they are probably the strongest team in college.
They're playing well. I'm not going with strongest team. Maybe
you not reckon? I don't know.
Maybe we've got them coming up a little bit later. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. yeah. No, but I think this is a Texas team that's firing on all cylinders. They've got it sussed this season. I think that they're clear favourites. I think they are favourites for me to win the SEC, and I think they can go up against anyone.
Yeah, I mean, the thing when we talk about Texas, they've got, again, a plethora of talent across the board. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defense looks good. O-line looks fantastic. There's no real question marks over them. Whereas Ohio, I've still got a question mark on Will Howard, but we'll talk about that later. So, as you said, it doesn't matter whether it's Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning in there at quarterback. I still think they win this one comfortably. Yeah. If Oklahoma have got any chance to win this game, I feel like it's got to come from the defense turning the ball over and maybe them scoring. Like I said, they have got the 4th-ranked defense in the country, so there is that potential there that they could do it. But equally, Texas have also got a great defense as well. They've only given up 3 touchdowns in 5 games, so I find this is going to be really hard because Oklahoma's offense is 121st in the country. So I just don't know how you put up enough points to even beat Texas. Like I said, it's going to have to come from pick sixes and turnovers and fumbles and things like that, surely.
Yeah, be hoping for a game a bit like that Bears game against the Titans. They scored all their points on defensive scores. They're going to have to absolutely ball out on defense.
I don't even think they're going to cover the spread. I think Texas win by more than 14 in this game, but
I think so.
We'll see.
It's quite plausible, I think.
Are we both going for Texas for this one?
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now we'll move on to the next game. Now I'm praying that this game is as good as we build it up to be, like that Alabama-Georgia game. I hyped that one up and said, out of all the NFL games that are on, maybe watch this college game instead because it's going to be good. I feel like this next game is going to be equally as good. And that's Ohio, the number 2 seed, against Oregon, the number 3 seed. Ohio are 3-point favorites in this game. This is going to be. I'll let you talk about this first because I might be very biased in it. So, what's your thoughts on this one? It's at Oregon, which is a tough place to go and play. I think they are, over the last 35 games, they are 34-1 at home. So that dates back a long way. So very tough place to play.
Yeah, Autzen Stadium is a tough place to go and play. I've watched USC go there and get beaten up, but this is an Oregon team that's a bit. They are good, and they should be good. But sometimes when you watch them, you don't think they are that good. But they are winning games, and they find a way to win. And Dan Lanning is a coach that is good at working things out and adjusting and finding ways to win. But they're coming up against an Ohio State team that might be the strongest team in college football at the moment, or maybe, and they're steamrolling teams at the moment. But you ask the question: who have Ohio State really played this season yet?
Whereas no, this is their first
test.
And
this is it. This is their first test. This is their
the biggest game they played was last week against Iowa. They struggled in the first half against Iowa, but they came out and then 4 drives, 4 touchdowns, and they win comfortably and put them away. It's not easy to do again. It's not easy to put points up against Iowa. They're very, very good in the trenches, and we managed that comfortably. We ran the ball on them well, which no one's done in the last 3 seasons. I don't think anyone's averaged more than 5 yards per carry, and we managed that. So there's lots of positives. It's just Will Howard for me. Back to where we were last year of going, is the quarterback good enough? But looking at that, last year we really, really struggled in the red zone. It was a big, big issue for us. But this year, we've got a 94% record of touchdowns in the red zone. We've had 22 attempts to score 21 touchdowns. So they're second in the country for that. So, I feel like we've got more talent on the both the D line and the O line. I think our run game is fantastic. Oregon, yes, they struggled over the first couple of weeks, but they've looked very, very good. I think it's a tough time to play them now. I wish we'd played them earlier in the year, but they were getting sacked loads at the start of the year. Now over the last 3 games, they've shuffled that O line around, and they've given up no sacks. So they definitely improved that Oregon offense has. Equally, we saw Aston Genty run all over them, and we've got Judkins and Henderson, so I'm quite comfortable that we can run all over them. My only question mark, and it is going to be for me the game to watch to see if Will Howard can do it, and see if I can say yes, he's the guy, he's going to do it, and say yeah, you shouldn't have got Cam Ward like I wanted, and Will Howard was correct. But I think Ohio should win this comfortably, but I am worried. About it.
Yeah. I mean, looking at it, Ohio State should win.
The talent
I think it's going to be closer than we expect. I don't even know what the spread is.
It's 3 points. 3 points.
Is it a 3-point spread? Yeah. Okay, so it is going to be a close game. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just looking back over the last few results for both teams. They're all very similar as well. Like, they both played Michigan State and both beat them. Well, 31-10 for Oregon and 38-7 for Ohio State. I don't know. Oregon beat up on UCLA and Oregon State pretty well there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be like a 1-score game, but in Ohio State's favour.
It should be. The roster that they've got, the returning players that they've got, the players that we got in the transfer portal, the way Jeremiah Smith played at the moment, Emeka Egbuka, people have forgotten about him and how good he is. He's going about a real good season. He's playing fantastic. I just don't see how the talent that we have in our roster, if we don't win this, I think it's down. I shouldn't say. I think it's down to Will Howard, because we're stacked. We should win this game. But it's in Eugene.
It's in Auckland, and Oregon have busted out their snazzy black uniforms because whatever happens, Oregon look good whether they're winning or losing. Well, I say that some people like their jazzy uniforms, some people don't, but they've gone for all black this game. So trying to look like they mean business. Whether they deliver their business or not will be another question. But I think they're gonna give it some. But I think sensibly, if you've got your sensible head on, I think we need to lean towards Ohio State.
Good. I like your thinking there.
Yeah.
I'm going to Ohio State as well, funny enough. It's a must-win game for us as well. I don't think you can lose too many of these. We move on to the last one. It is Ole Miss at LSU. I think this is a really, really interesting fixture. I think it's going to be a fantastic game, especially if you are trying to get into college football and you haven't seen a lot of this, because I think this is going to be a lot of offense and not much defense again. The number 9 seed Ole Miss, number 13 seed LSU. It's Ole Miss are the 3.5 point favorites in this game, but it's at LSU. That is a very, very tough place to go. It's a nighttime game in Death Valley. Now, that, if anything, is a spectacle to watch on its own, and it's very, very tough to go there. They are 2 of the top 10 scoring offenses in college football. What's your thoughts on this game?
Yeah. I think LSU they've got a lot better as the season's gone on. I'm just looking at their previous scores and things like that. But
other than week 1, which they let slip through their hands.
Oh no, they were beaten by a much better team in week 1. But yeah, they're a team that should be good. They should put up a lot of points, but then so should Ole Miss as well. They're very strong offensively. Jackson Dart is a very good quarterback. You add him in on your list of Heisman favourites, and probably still do. They had a bit of a blip game, didn't they, against Kentucky?
Yep.
Where they couldn't. That was at home though. Yeah, going into Tiger Stadium at night time might be a bit tricky. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I've watched enough of Ole Miss this season either. Again, it's another one of those teams that I hear about a bit, but I never actually get around to watching that much. And seeing them last week against South Carolina, they looked pretty comfortable, pretty confident. Again, like you said, I think it's going to be a bit of an offensive shootout game. Both quarterbacks are scoring a lot, putting up a lot of yards, scoring a lot of touchdowns. Nussmeier for LSU's got a couple more turnovers than Dart has. So
he's looking good.
He is. Oh yeah, he is. He's definitely looking more confident and looking better.
I think Nussmeier's playing well. I think he's averaging 330 yards per game. When I see him and watch him, he's tending to get the ball out on time, on target. It's definitely something that you want. Like I said, they've only had that slip up against USC where they were in the lead, they had it, and they let it go for some great play from Miller Moss in that game. So, I'm surprised that LSU are the underdogs in this one at home at night at Death Valley. And especially when, I have watched quite a bit of Ole Miss. I have got a bit of a soft spot for them. Obviously, Eli Manning was there, so kind of a bit of following of that. But the Ole Miss team has sustained some big, big injuries. There's a chance that Trey Harris might not play. Trey Harris is the number 1 wide receiver in yards in all of college football at the moment. And if he doesn't play, who's going to step up? Because that's Jackson Dart's go-to guy. And I do wonder where he's going to go with that. And I think, Ole Miss have put a lot into this year. And I think it comes down to this game. I think whoever wins this game has a chance at qualifying for the playoffs. But Ole Miss need to win this one. They went all in on this. They brought back a lot of people from last year. They brought people in from the portal. If they don't win this one and they don't go to the playoffs this year, I think there's a possibility. I've said this before. Lane Kiffin might be going to Florida next year and starting something new there. So I think Ole Miss, this means a lot for them. Whereas LSU, I think, are overachieving this year. I think no one thought they'd be in the mix. No one thought they'd be vying for the championship. They're always going to be good.
Yeah.
There's another injury question mark. I don't think he didn't play last week at all. and that's Princey Umanme Ellen. If I pronounced that correctly, he's driving himself up draft boards at the minute. I think he's got potential to be a first round, early second round pick in the draft upcoming on the D line. So yeah, it's those injuries. If Trey Harris isn't playing, if Princey isn't playing, then I think LSU have got a shot in this one. If they do play, I like Ole Miss because there's a lot riding on it for them this season, and I think they're going to be really up for this. But I think this is the hardest game to call so far for me of all the games we've covered.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Again, I'm trying to look at it with my sensible head on. It's
tough, isn't it?
Yeah, the home environment should favour LSU, but I don't know. I find myself leaning towards Ole Miss for some reason. I don't think I'm basing it in very, very sound.
Well, I think I'm the same.
Judgment. I think
my head says LSU, my heart says Ole Miss. That's just where I'm at with it. I think logically it should be an LSU win, but I'm going to go with Ole Miss because I've got that soft spot for them. So I'm going to pick Ole Miss.
Oh, I think I was going to pick Ole Miss as well.
Fine, you can go the same with me. That's not.
It's a very boring. Yeah, I've gone the same for everyone this week, but yeah, I think I'm going to lean towards Ole Miss. I think Jackson Dart's going to. Again, say it depends on if Harris is playing or not, but even without him, I don't know. I'll go Ole Miss as well.
Good lad. Good pick. Now, this is usually the part where I say, what other game are you going to be watching? But I'm guessing you're going to be watching USC Penn State because, again, that is another big fixture as well. So I think it could be interesting. There's a lot of, I haven't looked at the spread on it. Are they are Penn State clear favourites, or is this supposed to be a close game? Because I think.
Let's have a look. I mean, I will be watching it because it's on at quite a sensible time, so I won't have an excuse not to watch it. Well, have you got the spread? There's a 4-point spread.
No, it's close.
Ugh. And according to ESPN Analytics, it's 51% in favour of USC. But I'm not sure that's quite correct. I don't know. Yeah, so, I will be watching it through my fingers, going.
If you're not watching that and it's not going well, what other game have you got your eye on?
Oh, I have got. Well, I think the games we talked about, the ones I'm most interested in. I think. I'll tell you what could be an interesting one is Arizona BYU.
I was going to say that you've mentioned BYU and you kind of said to me like keep an eye on them. They look good. They've got a chance. They could qualify. So I noted that one down, going, you know what, I might give them a watch. I like Arizona, but Alex is pushing me towards BYU.
Yeah, with BYU and because they're undefeated on the season as well, and so is Iowa State, who are just quietly going about their business, beating teams. And they're playing West Virginia this weekend as well, so that'll be another interesting tie, I think. Because whilst they're 3-2, they've had some good games, West Virginia, haven't they? They've put up some good fights against good teams. So yeah, how about you? Have you got any other games that you're?
Well, I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that Florida at Tennessee game that I mentioned earlier. I think that's a must-watch for me to see how that goes. I think if Florida do win this and they upset and beat Tennessee, I think people might start. What's their record at the moment? I think people might start getting back on the bandwagon. They've lost 2, lost to Miami and Texas A&M. And then, as always, I'll be keeping an eye on Kansas State at Colorado, because you can't keep your eyes off of Colorado. They're just so fascinating. So yeah, that's the ones for me.
Okay.
Well, that's all we've got time for. Good luck to all your teams as we're playing. I hope my team get a victory. I hope your team get a victory because I'd love them to beat Penn State. That'd be good for me because we've got them to play very, very soon. So I'd like them not to be undefeated when they come and play us. But yep, thanks for coming on, Alex, as always, and best of luck to all your teams. We'll be around next week. There'll be lots of, if you keep an eye on our social media, there's a lot of London games in at the minute, so we'll be putting loads of stuff out there because we are at all of them. So keep your eyes peeled for all of that. But keep it with the franchise tag and see you very soon.